whatever material you use, okay, the qualities of the material used depend on the function of the material. I just quickly want to take a feather and explain the mechanics behind what happened on a feather. So this is a feather, right? The bottom of the feather you have what we call the quill. The quill is that hollow, soft section that goes into the bird, right? Then you have what they call a rachis. Some people call it a feather stem. The shape of the rachis changes as you move from the bottom of the feather to the top of the feather. It'll typically be round, it'll go ovoid, and then it'll go flat. If you're trying to tie in a feather stem on the round bit, that's the hook in cross section. A round object and a round object will roll. You've got to do two things. One of two things. You can either flatten the feather stem, right? Or you can do this. You can use the barbs of the feather as stabilizers over here. And that will also ensure that the feather stays on top of the shank. Okay. Terminology. These sections coming off of the rachis are called barbs. Right? These little sections coming off the barbs are called barbules. Barbules. Sometimes, in the case of CDC, you'll also have smaller sections coming off the barbules, and these will be called barbicils. Okay? In the case of marabou, you will notice that the quality of the barbs will differ along the feather stem. If you move from the bottom, they tend to be fluffier, and when you get to the top, less fluffier, more taper. Fluffy, less taper, more taper, less fluffy. Okay? Fail to plan, plan to fail. Thread control. It's important that you work with the thinnest thread possible. The thinnest thread possible, and you work with a thread that is flat. Flat thread gives you options. If you want to twist the thread up, you can, but if you want to work with it flat, it's perfect. You get some threads that are braided. They literally twist it up. Bietjie soos hy wol wat ons nou gebruik het. The problem with that is they limit you. The nice thing with a flat thread is I can use it twisted up or flat. I can choose. And I can work with the thread in such a way to get different things out of it. Okay? Now, when I laid the thread foundation on the hook shank, I used the tag end of the thread to help me lay that thread foundation nice and neat and even. It's important that you lay a thread foundation. Why? So that you can seat materials. Dit is nogal baie belangrik. Okay? I use a lighter colored thread. Two reasons. Number one, I can make markings on the thread body to help guide me in terms of the proportions of the fly. Okay? Number two, a lighter colored thread, right? When the dubbing, if you had to dub lightly on the body of the fly, when the fly is wet, it will remain true to color under the lighter thread. If I use the black thread, it will show up dark. Not that that's a major issue, but I'm just saying. Okay. We've mentioned marabou, we've mentioned planning. Great. Okay, I want to talk about the concept of taper. So, let's start with economy first. The first thing I did was I tied in a marabou tail. And I tied it in from the middle of the hook shank. Okay, so I tied it in over there. Marabou has these little barbs. The barbs have barbules. It's very fluffy and it's difficult to tie in. So what you need to do is gob on it. Spit, roll it between thumb and forefinger, cut it, easier to tie it in. You tie it in on that very section there. You tie it there using a pinched wrap. That's a wrap within a pinch. That makes sure that the material is slap bang on top of the hook shank. Baie belangrik, very important. Why? Because if the tail is unbalanced, what will happen? The fly will move kak. Cuck for our international guest is shit. Right, tie it on top. Then, we're going to tie the rib in at exactly the same spot that we tied the tail in at an angle. Now, let's see if we've got this drawing. At an angle. Why at an angle? So that it doesn't slip or slide. It can't. Why? Because it's trapped against the hook shank. Okay? Very important. Tied in at the same spot. Then we hold the marabou and the copper wire on the far side of the hook shank. So, not here, on the other side. On the far side of the hook shank, marabou on top. Make sure the positioning of that is solid throughout on every wrap. And wrap with flat thread. Keep it coming in flat, untwist it every now and then. Wrap all the way to the end over there. So now you've got your tail copper wire in. When tying in your marabou, use marabou barbs near the tip of the feather with extreme taper. You don't need many, 4, 5, 6 max. Wet them at the tips so they stick together. Okay? When you tie them in, that same concept. Longer barb length, 1 wrap, 2 wraps. Pull this till it's on its very, very tips. Wrap tightly till that mark over there. When you wrap the barbs for the body, wrap them away from you, wrap, okay, and then trap them. Put the finger on the opposite side and trap them in place. That gives you opportunity to gather your right hand and go in with your next wrap. Also, it helps you to keep those barbs flat. Why do you want to keep them flat? To keep the body thin and slim and trim. No? Wrap, trap, wrap, trap, wrap, trap, wrap, trap. When we get to young, we tie them in. Your problem with marabou barbs is always durability. And for this reason, we cross rib. We wrap the rib towards us at a slight angle, and that basically aids the durability of the fly, number one. But also, number two, if you use the contrasting rib color, like chartreuse or orange or whatever the case might be, it helps the fly show up better. On this olive, if you use the dark olive and you use like a nice chartreuse, it would work very, very well. Okay? Flash. Any flash or shiny shit in a fly is contextual. You use flash because you need to. At certain times, flash will spook fish, clear, bright conditions, generally. Dirtier water, less fizz, flash works fairly well. So it's contextual. When I tie the copper wire in, I wrap it towards me, 4 or 5 wraps over there. I break it off and get a couple of thread wraps over there. If you want to drop a super glue on it, go for it. No problem. Okay? Next, I tie in Swiss straw for my wing case. Swiss straw is flat. The nature of the material will dictate how you work with the material. So a flat material doesn't want a pinch wrap. It wants a soft loop on the side of the shank towards you. Soft loop, and as you pull the tension, let the material slide on top of the hook shank. Okay? Needs to be tied on top. Dubbing. Distribute the dubbing evenly along the thread. Okay? Dub in one direction with index finger and thumb. For the right-handed tire, if you want a tighter effect, dub, when viewed from the top, in a clockwise direction. As you are wrapping the thread is turning in a clockwise direction, further tightening up the dubbing. That helps with durability. You might want to do it looser, touched up, and not do it that tightly. That gives you another effect. Depends what you want to do. Less is more. Don't use too much dubbing. Most people are like, we're part of the Big Mac generation. Bigger is better. Definitely not. It's not better. Okay? Dub your thorax lightly, not too much. Next thing, split thread. Okay, so this is in my book. This is how the split thread works. Make sure the thread is flat. Let it lie, let it untwist. Okay? Prepare your CDC in your clip. Get that out of the way. Lying there neatly next to you. Put the thread over the fingernail of your index finger of your left hand for right-handed ties. Gooi your needle in there, get a finger in there and part the thread. Okay, slip it down, put your CDC in there, slide your thread over this, here's your clip, over the CDC fibers, okay? Make sure there's no gap in there, it's got to be tight. Then, open the clip, and then move. A lot of those, they get the shits when they have to do this, and they open and move at the same time and they take half the fibers with them. That is cut for our international guests. Shit. It's important that all the material remains in the thread. Right? For those guys who are spiritual leaders or whatever, excuse my language, this is the best way I know to describe it. Okay, so once you've done that, you need to make sure that your thread is at a 90-degree angle to the hook shank. With the finger underneath there, lacquer finger. So there you've got a lacquer finger right there with your CDC fibers. You twist this clockwise when viewed from the top. Every now and then lifting it. So these fibers can spin within the thread. They need to give you a bottle brush effect. If you don't maintain that angle, what happens is these fibers twist up on each other, right? And then you get kak. For our international guests, shit. Okay, so you got the bottle brush effect. Now what you do is, these fibers are all over the place. When you wrap the legs, you need to brush the fibers or fold the fibers back. You need to get the fibers all into one direction. So you literally, with your index finger and your thumb, fold them back, wrap, let go, fold back, wrap. What that will do is, it will give you a nice swept back look. Swept back. Okay? Important, sweep. So now you've got your sweep. With the needle, divide your CDC fibers neatly on either side of the hook shank. So you've got a needle, divide them, and then pull your Swiss straw over and tie it in. Once you've tied it in, lift it up and give it a locking wrap. Locking wraps displace tension. Excellent if you're tying wings for LK caddises, for instance. The tension will be at the tying point. You don't want the tension on the hair. Just lock the wrap on the hook shank and you displace the tension. Then you can leave the hair. Locking wraps are important. Okay? So now we've got the locking wrap. Burning mono. The rule is this. You have a hackle plier. Okay? The length of the mono needs to be equal on either side of the hackle plier. So, okay, here's your hackle plier, here's your mono. Equal. This drawing might be shit because I could be suffering from the era of parallax right now. Okay? I'm looking at an angle, you're not. That's what that is. So, what you do is, when you burn this, okay, you want this to be at, oh no wait, what did I do? There. At an angle. The 45-degree angle, got your flame there. Okay. Do not have constant heat. Burn it and let this basically melt all the way up to the other. Important. You do not want bubbles in your monofilament. Why? It will render them brittle. Once you've done that, let it dry. Blow on it. Blast. Blast, papa, blast. If you want to know if it's ready or not, touch it lightly. Do not get any of this melting mono messing on you. It will burn a hole right through you. And if it lands on your charamachutso, you've got a serious problem. Right. For our international guests, that is obvious. It's that. Okay. So, then what you do is, you twist this the other way around and you do the exact same thing on the other side. If your eyes are unequally sized, you can melt mono, dab it onto there, dab it off, and melt little bits on to get them to an equal size. Has everyone got that? Have you got it? Yes. Okay. Now, to tie the eyes in, this is how this works. Figure of 8 wraps. The figure of 8 wrap works in the following way. Over, across, under, in front of the eyes. Over, across, here's the hook eye. Over, across, under, in front of the hook eyes. Then we go over, across, back, under, behind the eyes. And it's an 8. Tie it in, loosely. Then position the eyes, a couple of more figure of 8 wraps, nice and tight. Then a drop of super glue, just to solidify everything. When you dub around individual eyes, dub around individual eyes so that you get a flat head profile. When viewed from the side, you don't want this massive round head. Damsels have flat heads. You need very little. Okay? End with the thread in front. Pull the Swiss straw over. 1 tight wrap, 2 tight wraps, locking wrap, half hitch. Half hitch so that nothing slips. Then you cut right at the end and you make a whip finish, an impregnated whip finish. So a little bit of super glue on the thread and you whip finish. Tighten up. When you tighten up, don't pull towards you because then your thread's fighting itself. Pull to the back of the fly. Okay? That away. Tighten it up, cut, boom, done. Okay? I know there's a shitload of information in this little video to digest, but I can promise you I've tried to do it as economically and efficient as possible. All of this stuff is true. Try it, test it. I'm not lying. Try it out.